Hey guys, welcome to a special segment of Chief Concerns. I'm Marcus Dash, obviously here with former legendary Chiefs tight end Jason Dunn and my brother Teja Dash. Obviously, if you guys been watching our show, you know we're stoked and ecstatic to be back in the Super Bowl, Super Bowl chance, baby. In a rematch of a few years ago. But one of the obviously we're stoked about that. But one of the kind of things that came from the AFC Championship game was Charles Omenihu getting hurt, big time. One of our second highest ticketed offseason acquisition. Guy missed the first few weeks of the season for suspension. But this is a guy who came from San Francisco. This is a guy who I believe had a sack against us last year when we played in San Francisco. This guy probably wanted to play so badly against his former team, a team that didn't pay him the money, and he ended up coming to Kansas City to get it, and was amazing for us in the short time he played for us this year. But it's going to be a huge loss for us in the D-line. And the big question is who's going to step up in Charles Omenihu's absence. We have a few guys, got some young guys, some rotational dudes in there. But what is alarming to you without having Omenihu coming up here against San Francisco? And who do you think are some of the guys who can kind of hold down the fort while Omenihu's gone for this one game?
Well, the thing is, his loss is going to be felt, no doubt about it, because he just brings a whole lot of versatility to what he can do. He could rush from inside to outside, and so that's a heavy hand. And so when you're talking about going against Big Trent, he was going to be a good matchup, I think, for us.
Yeah,
so I really wanted to see that. Obviously, he's playing against his old team, which gave him a little bit more incentive, a little bit more motivation. And I think that's why he said, he was telling the reporter after the game was over, do I look like a guy that's not going to play in the Super Bowl? And I guess he spoke a little bit too soon, man.
Yeah.
But I think if you have like some of the younger guys, obviously we talk about the young guys is King Felix could be a guy come in, maybe do a few things because he's been watching these guys all year. And so you would love for a young guy to come in and kind of shine. Imagine come out of college and go straight to the Super Bowl, your first year. And so he's playing, he's got to be one of the happiest guys on Kansas City's team. Okay. Plus, it's your hometown team that you loved your entire life, right? Grew up around this area. And then all of a sudden you want to, you're playing in the Super Bowl, things you dreamed of, things you've seen on TV the last couple of years. So now the time is here. This would be, for me, a great outing for him to come and make a stake, put his name out there to try to come in and give you something. He's got to give you something, this for the Super Bowl. So,
Teja, so what were your thoughts on obviously not having Omenihu in this big one, like JD mentioned, not having him against Trent? That's huge. That's probably of their offensive line. That's probably, and they have a decent O line, but that's probably the main piece on that O line that when you think of San Francisco, you think of Trent Williams, and that was the guy who's going to have to kind of take the brunt of that task. But now it's down to King Felix, Mike Dana.
Yeah. I would assume they would, split time, Dana getting more time. I looked at some of the games we played without Omenihu. We blitz a lot more when he wasn't there. So if you count the Ravens game in that, we blitzed 21.6 times a game without him. Different players blitzed. And then we had 15.4 with him. Tranquil blitzed, I think, 15 times one game without him there. So we definitely are going to try to figure out more packages to make up for the lack of pass rush. It'll hurt. I'd love to, especially with the Niners' plethora of weapons, you'd want to drop as many guys back as possible and try to get to Purdy with, just your four-man front, which we could have done with Omenihu. And, we still could if Dana has the game of his life because, Dana's a free agent. And, with DNs, I mean, they can control their own destiny if they get paid. So Dana goes off in one game. He's thinking him and his agent are like, man, you got one game. You show up, you have a 2-sack game in this game. We're getting blank checks this offseason. Okay. So, they're talking about that. They want that. And for FAU, not the same for him, but if he shows up and does that, with Omenihu possibly being out part of the season next year, you're starting DN to start the season possibly. if you tear it up, right? Or at least going into training camp, they're going to be expecting you to be competing for that job. Either way, really. But if you tear it up in the Super Bowl, sky's the limit for you next year. I haven't looked at blitz rates versus the Niners and what teams usually do and what the success rate is with Purdy, but that would also play into it as well.
I think you had to play him just like, man, Green Bay played him. Green Bay had him beat. I mean, it really did. And so Green Bay is a very solid defense. I think we have a better defense than Green Bay does. And so I think you got to be able to attack him. I think Omenihu, obviously, like you said, Trent, because he's just a handful himself, probably the best O-lineman in the game, arguably today. That, it's almost the same thing. You still got to make sure that you shore up the lanes, keep all the leverage, because, CMC is going to, if you could get him going, that's going to be the problem. But I think, when you stop Debo, you stop Ayuk, Kittle, all those different things. I love the blitz package. I think you need to bring the blitz package, because one thing you can do is you can absolutely you can scare Purdy. You can scare him. And we've seen him give up, 5 or 6 interceptions during the game. So that's not unheard of. And we have a very stingy defense. And I do believe, because of what we can do, like you're talking about Spags, given, some versatility to what his packages could be. I love the blitzes. I think we should do some, a little bit more of that. So I just look, man, when I look at the combination, and the reality is this, like we talked about it last week against the Ravens, we have played the best wide receiver group in the league. We've seen them all. We've seen the best tight ends in the league. We've seen them all. And so what we can do defensively against this offense, I love it. I love it. It's just the same thing. It's going to be the same thing. Stop the run. Stop the run this week. Stopping the run was, you had to make sure you had to have almost 8 guys in the box. That's what it was. They was going through a 7-man, 8-man in the box, bringing that safety down. When you rotate down to be right there to make that tackle, that's going to be key. And so the inside guys still going to have a great game, in Charles Omenihu's his absence. It's going to happen. But Marcus, I know you were talking about the young guys, right? So who do you think, as far as young guys? And I know we said King Felix. Is there anybody else?
The three guys that come to mind would be Dana, obviously, who gets the most playing time of those guys.
Yeah.
Malik Herring, who's the guy who's gotten more playing time than King Felix has, and I think we'll be seeing a lot more of Malik Herring in this game. But then you have King Felix, who has been a healthy scratch for a lot of these games in the playoffs. I think obviously he won't be a healthy scratch. He'll be playing, getting rotated in more. And I remember, it's weird because coming into the season, he was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year last year. And when I remember when we got Carl Loftus, it was like, oh, he's a project. He wasn't a football guy always. He was a water polo guy. He's gonna be a project. By the end of last year, he came on strong.
Yeah.
This year, we're giving a healthy scratch to King Felix, a guy who was not supposed to be as late bloomer. And we started the season when we didn't have Omenihu, when we didn't have Chris Jones. King Felix got a lot of playing time in that Detroit game. He got a lot of snaps in that game. First few games, he came close to a few sacks in those games. So it's interesting to me that we've just gone the route just saying, hey, we're just going to give you a healthy scratch. But now it's time for him to come in. And, yeah, like JD said, it's huge for him, obviously, Kansas City guy, for him to come in and play in the Super Bowl of all games. Yeah, I mean, he's going to finally get an activation in the Super Bowl. And hopefully he can give us at least, some energy, some juice, because you'll be playing with that adrenaline of playing with your own team in the Super Bowl, which is the dream. I think we saw Hutchinson last week with Detroit. To get his team to that spot, the team that he grew up watching, the team that, that was his hometown team, took him to the NFC Championship game. You see how emotional he was. And, yeah, and I think we're going to get the same kind of vibes with King Felix. Obviously, I'm not comparing King Felix and Hutchinson's talent level, but I'm saying that kind of energy and vibe we'll be getting in this game. But I want to throw something else at you guys. Obviously, the connection Chris Jones has and our team has with Frank Clark, free agent that we can go out and get right now, or these aren't practice squad, so we could take him from someone else's practice squad. Frank Clark, Carlos Dunlap, 2 guys who were on this team last year. 2 guys, and we also have a week and a half to the game, so it's not like we're playing on Sunday. We have a week and a half to kind of get these guys up to speed.
True.
Do you guys like what we have as far as the depth in the room right now to go with the guys we just mentioned, the Herrings, the Danas, the King Felixes, or do we say, hey, let's go get Frank Clark for some Super Bowl juice, or let's go bring Carlos Dunlap for some Super Bowl juice from one of the vets that had been waiting around all season? What do you guys think about that as opposed to sticking with what we got?
Okay, so I'm sure what I'm gonna say is going to be a very unpopular opinion. All right.
Oh,
But I'm just going to say it. I would say no, seriously. I mean, talent wise, where everybody, and I'm just taking from practicality and other teams how they were looking at it. Well, right. So I don't know as far as Carlos, if he just didn't sign because he didn't, I don't know where he is, but I do know with Frank Clark, he got released from two different teams. Okay, and there was a reason for it. And the two teams he didn't do anything when he was there with Denver and with Seattle. And so, would he be able to give you something? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he will or not. And like I said, I think maybe the Chiefs are ready to just kind of move on from it. And if it's things he's still dealing with medically, and like I said, I get that people still have the affinity for him because of what he's done here in the past.
sure.
I get that. But yeah, is he taking space where somebody could, like Keith Felix? They're about the same size. I mean, Felix has been out there playing. He can definitely give you something. And so I would rather stay on the younger end with Felix and those guys, as opposed to bringing in maybe a Frank Clark or, or Carlos Dunlap. If I had to choose between Frank and Carlos, then I would think probably bringing Carlos in. But I don't know. I don't know where Carlos is at. I have no idea where he is physically in any of these things. And the thing is, only thing I've heard about Frank hasn't really been good as far as the physical aspect of it. So that's how I feel. Tage?
Oof.
We tell them the truth out here, Tage. We got to tell the truth.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, fans would like if we did that. I think that's a fan favorite move. I don't think it would hurt as far as depth. I mean, I don't think if you sign Frank Clark, he's playing 90% of snaps by any means. Could he give you? I mean, like I said, I forgot what we said a few weeks ago. We were talking about something, and I said if it helps us 5% up our chances by 2 to 5%, is it worth doing it? I'm always in favor of yes if it doesn't hurt anything. It's one game. We're not signing a contract with them to go for a whole year. We're not committed to them or anyone. I'm saying insert free agent here. Wow. Is it one more fresh set of legs out there? Talk about being hungry, man. Like, you got a guy who's literally going to play a 1-game contract with the team just to go out there and ball out. And I got to say, like you said, Clark, just to play devil's advocate, you said Clark didn't do much for Seattle or Denver. Clark wasn't doing much for us in a lot of the regular seasons. Yeah. And then he played well in the postseason, I guess, when you could say when it matters. So if he replicates that, I mean, maybe this is kind of a normal Frank Clark season, not doing much in the regular season and coming in and balling out in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So if he comes in and wants to just go at it for one game and go nuts, maybe it's a send off. Maybe he's like gone after this. Either way, I figure he would just try with every little ounce of blood, sweat, and tears in his body to ball out. I don't see a huge harm in it. I do see a positive in the Chiefs saying no if they are that confident in who we have in house. That's a confidence boost for me to be like, okay, they think someone's going to shine. But I was looking at Felix's snap count. He was, even in the beginning of the season with no Omenihu, he was only averaging like about 25-26% snap count. So he wasn't even playing, like, he was playing a lot more than he did, the rest of the season where he got most of his healthy scratches and, 8% snaps, but he wasn't playing like full, even more than half the game. So I think you are going to see a lot more Herring, and you are going to see a little more Dan, but Dan is so light, man. Trent Williams is going to eat him for lunch, man. He's just going to push him around. But yeah, I wouldn't hurt for me. I'd be okay with it. Do I think he's going to come in and start and play 80% of snaps? No, I'm not naive. But I don't think it'd be a bad thing.
the postseason sack. You say he's top 3 all time postseason sacks. I mean, I'm not gonna say if you were to get signed, you'd have 2 sacks in the game next Sunday. But yeah, he trails Bruce Smith by 1.5 sacks, and then he trails Willie McGinnis by 3 sacks for the all-time postseason sack record.
That's incentives, man. I mean, those are incentives for a guy to come in and ball. Besides winning a Super Bowl, and besides maybe getting a contract off, because the NFL, man. The NFL is funny like that. You can be a pariah and not get signed by anybody. You have a good game in front of the whole world in the Super Bowl, and boom, someone could throw you a 2-year deal after that. You know what I mean? And that's money in his pocket for his long-term wealth.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry. By the way, Purdy is amazing against the blitz. Just keep that in mind.
Is he? I was
Right.
going to ask. Interesting.
Right. Yeah, he's really, really good. Teams have tried it before, and he diced him. So I would like to look at the Green Bay game. I'd also like to look at the Baltimore game, because the Baltimore game, they smacked them. So I want to see how they smacked him. So, that would be interesting to see.
Yeah. And I'm sure they're going to bring all that film up to see exactly, how effective they were. And I think it's the same formula, right? You jump on them early. Okay, I think Green Bay had them. Shoot, Detroit had them. And they end up coming back. And so you can't be very conservative with these guys second half trying to do things. Like, you got to go at their throats, because they got all of the talent around him for Purdy to throw the football. Yeah. But we do good in man coverage. I don't know any other team that runs man like we do, to be honest, and be effective. So
that's true. That's true.
So to end this topic here and the segment, if you guys were to bet on this, are we sticking with the group that we have, or are we going to bring in some outside help? If you were to bet on this,
okay. I'm sure they're thinking of bringing somebody in. I'm sure somebody has already been there. They probably talked about it. They may stick with the guys they got. I think it's where they are, right?
When you mean outside, you mean like Dunlap, Clark, big
Clark, JPP, Dunlap.
I think between that, I think we stick with what we have.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll say this about Dana. Yeah, he's smaller, but he's one of those guys. We talk about how Omenihu and Jones can play inside, outside. Dana has been one of those guys who has been able to do inside, outside, whether, he's good against the run or not. He's played DT, he's played D, and he's kind of been versatile all throughout the D line. So, he is a very versatile guy. Yeah, smaller in stature compared to Omenihu and Jones, but, he has been able to do a little bit of everything on the D line, which is one thing I love about Dana.
You could probably, honestly, I would probably work them two in. I'm talking about switching them in and out all the time. Dana, then Felix, then Dana, then Felix, and Harry. I just keep bringing different people against Trent every single chance you get, right? I think that's what you do. So you just try to say, hey, look, let's just try to wear him down through attrition. We're just going to try to keep attacking him, keep attacking your lanes, keep attacking, the B gap, C gap. We got to make sure these guys get in there. And so, maybe we do hit home, but I think we had to hang our hat what we hung our hat on all season, and that's the blitz. I think it's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. And I'll say this, too. Based on the quarterbacks that we've had to play to get to this point, Brock Purdy is – I know everyone's trying to say he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. We've gone against the top 5 quarterbacks to get to this point.
Yeah, and that out. Whoever said that, man, they need to cut it out. Seriously. I like Brock Purdy. I think he's very talented. But being a top 5 quarterback in the league,
he's got a good story. Top 5 quarterback, no.
Yeah, having a good story don't prepare you to top 5 now in the NFL.
The best movies don't always win best film at the Academy Awards for a reason,
True.
All right, guys. Well, that does it for us for our special segment. JD and I will be back on tonight on our YouTube channel. We have special guests, Steve Bono coming on, former Chief and former 49er coming on to talk Chiefs and 49ers with us. I think he leans more San Francisco. Yeah, I think he's part of the San Francisco 49er alumni group, but that's fine. He'll give us some honest perspective on both teams and our episode tonight. So looking forward to seeing some of you guys on the live stream tonight, and we'll see you guys then. Love you, fellas.
All right.
Love you guys. Later on.
Good.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.